Well, good morning and welcome to Mirador Country. And typical Monday morning, can't find anything. But we come with the spring in our step because it was a delightful weekend watching lots of rugby, astonishing results. And not bad weather at all. To wake up this morning to howling gales and tons of rain and the winds really going at it was just something again. But anyway, the fact of the matter is, this is the way it is, isn't it? Anyway, right now it is on its way to reaching the high of 13, but it's still only 11 centigrade, a mostly sunny forecast for the moment. The strong winds are there, but the heavy rain is holding off. But do be careful because you know how quickly it can change. Don't go out without being prepared for at least some rain. No, indeed, some rain. Right, okay, let's have a look at the newspapers, the front pages of the newspapers, shall we? And the Gary Lineker thing rumbles on, getting very tiresome in my view. Frankly, I had some interesting conversations on the internet. I don't normally do it, but with various people who either know me or know of me. And they were pouring scorn on my head for saying that Gary Lineker was in the wrong. It wasn't saying that he was necessarily in the wrong. But what I am saying is that celebrities should not use their platform in which they're a celebrity to carry on a political agenda. These people were so adamant that we got an evil conservative government that we can break all the rules. No, we don't. That's the trouble. We're always breaking rules because we're always finding a rationale for breaking rules, which means that we have no rule of law. A very good friend of mine is now retired, but a Lord Justice who believes strongly in rule of law and actually goes down to the Balkans and to other new democracies to try and explain to their judiciary what rule of law is. Well, he should stay at home and actually try and teach some of our own people, because we are wanton in deciding that we can do what we want to do as long as it's justified. But it's not. And this man stepped out of line. But what really I object to is that he is using his base and he's strutting and he's posing, and he's not very good at what he does. He shouldn't be where he is if he wasn't such a good footballer. And people say, oh, well, he's very good. No, he's not. By any professional standards, he's very poor, along with a number of the other people that are ex-sports people. Now, I have no objection whatsoever to bringing people in to present, to report, or whatever else on BBC or anywhere else, as long as they are properly trained. But these people are just so held in great awe. Oh, he was a great footballer. Oh, she was a great horsewoman, or whatever. Is that everybody seems absolutely scared silly of saying, well, look, we're going to have to put you through some training. So as a consequence, they pick up the bad habits because they've watched television. I mean, anybody can do television because they've watched it. Yes, I know all about that. It's tough bloody going, I'll tell you, to get the thing right. It is tough going. These people, they're not very good. They have no competition. So people fawn over them and make them feel that they are much better and greater than they are. And then they abuse their position. And that's what this man has done. And those people who have threatened to quit, I urge the Director General this, let them quit. Let them see where else they can get a job. All right? And then instead of going through the silly nonsense that the BBC does with its so-called boards to try and show to the general public that its appointments are fair and above board, which they're not. They're full of patronage and nepotism and you name it. I have at least 3 talented presenters in Lewis who would never get a look in at the BBC because they couldn't even get their first step on the so-called board system. The fact of the matter is that they are good, they are talented, and with a little bit of nurturing and so on, the BBC could be doing a great job in that direction. It doesn't. What it does is it takes on these idiots who are totally incapable of doing the job that they are hired for, and then use the platform to make political points. I'm not saying that I disagree with Lineker or with the other people that are around him in their viewpoint. Everybody, in fact, this station, this channel, defends to the death people's right to have a viewpoint without being pilloried. But they have to use the right background, the right forum to substantiate their thoughts. And these people haven't. They are doing it because they are famous sports people. Lovely. I'm grateful and I value their ability to entertain us and to even lift national pride by being good sports people. But that does not make them good commentators, and it most certainly does not give them the right to use their platform to express any old view they want. And if it does, I'm going to come down and knock on the door of the Director General and say, you let him do it, now let me do it. I have a right. You see the reaction I would get from that. So anyway, that's where I stand on this thing. And let's see if I can get some of these words closer to me, because as I get a bit older, so my eyesight tends to go a bit. Which newspaper are we on to now? We are into the Eye to start off with. All right. the row between the BBC and Gary Lineker following a disruptive weekend to TV football coverage at the broadcaster. The Eye reports that it is set to be he is set to be reinstated as match of the day next week, and the BBC's Director General is set to announce a review of rules for presenters on the use of social media. The paper also reports on growing pressure on BBC Chairman Richard Sharp to resign. Well, if it's over this, I don't see why he should. The Metro, Lineker muzzled for now. Yes, well, I think that I'd be quite happy for Lineker to be muzzled. Not as Lineker. He can use every channel available to you and to me. That's absolutely legitimate, and his view, no matter what I think, or well, it really is almost the fact about his ability as a presenter, is that can go by the board. That he can use these social media to express his opinion, as long as he doesn't mix it with the fact that he's influencing people because of his status. The Metro says Gary Lineker insisted he cannot say anything amid the growing crisis at the BBC, following his social media comments about the UK government's asylum policy. Talks between the BBC and Lineker are said to be moving in the right direction after a weekend of scheduling, which was disrupted to the broadcaster's support to sports coverage. I can't even get my teeth together this morning. Nick Timothy in the Daily Telegraph says, this is about impartiality of national institutions, not free speech. Well, that would be an interesting column to read. The Daily Telegraph, Lineker set to return as BBC bosses back down. The Telegraph says Lineker is set to return as BBC bosses back down. The paper focuses on Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's announcement of a £5 billion increase in military spending to strengthen the UK's national defences and curb the threat from Russia and China. Well, there we are. These are things which we do have to look at and keep an eye on while we're getting all het up about nonsensical things such as this Lineker row. We've got to start looking out for our national defense. And I've even spoken to some of my Russian friends, but I've spoken to friends in Taiwan and Southeast Asia, and there is no question that there, where the China is at their door and saber rattling, they are worried. And if they're worried, we should be worried, because China and Russia may well not have the diplomatic nous to stay out of the boxing ring. And if they get in, then we're going to have to get in. And the Americans are going to have to get in. And where does that end up with? World War. The Mail. Will BBC do Lineker deal today to end the TV standoff? The Mail asks whether the BBC will strike a deal with Gary Lineker today to end TV standoff. He goes on to say that the corporation's Director General, Tim Davie, returned back from the United States for crisis talks in a bid to get the 1.35 million star back on screen by Saturday. Don't hurry. I know what I would have done if I'd have been in there and I'd have been the executive producer. I would have gone looking through the corridors and I would have gone talking to as many people to say, who can we bring along? Who can we put in? They may be a bit raw, but by golly, let's get some new talent going. Now, what do? No, they just left the studio empty. Why? There's no need. There's no statutory duty to do so. All they have to do is to get a presenter. And it would have been really very eyebrow-raising if Gary Lineker had been replaced for Match of the Day. He's not the only bull in the pen, as they say. He's not the only person that can present this and do it justice. What an opportunity missed. And for that matter, to replace some of the other acolytes that, I'm full of solidarity, I won't go into work either. Well, don't. But don't bother to come back, because you're no bloody good. You are not any good. You haven't been trained. But we put up with you. Well, I don't watch that damn program. As a matter of fact, I don't even watch Question of Sport anymore. The only person that had any competence whatsoever out of the ex-sports person was Sue Barker, and she was absolutely superb. But you see, she'd been there for 10, 15, 20 years, and she came at a time when we did train people properly. We gave them proper training, whether it was the BBC or elsewhere in broadcasting, because millions and millions and millions of pounds are spent during the 1970s and the early 1980s trying to find out what made audiences tick, what made them like this presenter and not that one, what made them cherish this program and not a similar one down there. Millions. And presenters and broadcasters and journalists were each brought in at the end of each week to talk to their producers and have an analysis done. They wouldn't do that today. They would consider it an insult. Well, I consider it an insult to have to put up with this poor broadcasting. And actually, just bits and pieces here in between the general smarm of, they're wonderful. There are others who have actually contacted me and have also expressed their view on social media who agree with what I'm saying. So I'm not totally alone, not totally out of step. Yes. Right. Okay. Well, take a good look. Last of a dying breed. Right, okay. The Mirror. Lineker piece deal. Hope the back of the net is the Daily Mirror's headline is back of the net. It reports that a compromise deal between Lineker and the BBC is being thrashed out, and the presenter could be back on Match of the Day next Saturday. These are all the front pages this morning, all about some inconsequential presenter. Of a fairly interesting program for sports people. But that's all it is. It's an interesting program for sports people. It doesn't have huge ratings. And I'm not a bit surprised with the presentation stuff it's got. But there we go. That's where it stands. And why on earth we are getting our knickers into a twist over the whole thing? Well, I know why. Because the publicists have got going. Knickers publicists are going right. Balding, yes. And probably the government spokespeople or the information officers is whipping up a storm in the background as well. The Sun. Lineker back on the box. Returns and Match of the Day this week. The BBC boss risks a new row. Well, I hope that he's got the guts to have a new row. It needs it. It needs cleansing. The Sun paper reports that BBC bosses are due to reveal a deal that will let Tweet Rouse star back on Match of the Day. The Times. BBC bosses seek truce to get Lineker back on side. Take a look at him. I'm sure he's not a bad lad. I'm not suggesting he is. He's just not very good at what he's paid to do, and he's paid an enormous amount of money. But you see, the trouble is, at the BBC, it's got a massive bureaucracy, and they ultimately are responsible for who appears on camera, who appears as reporters, and so on and so forth. But they have no background in broadcasting at all. They're pen pushers, but they make the decision. And frankly, they get it right once in a while with somebody like Sue Barker. They don't get it right very often. They really don't. And it's about time that the whole thing was actually laid bare for what it is, a farce. We really, oh gosh, BBC, my dear, it's full of standards. No, it's not. And actually, what we do is we protect and pretend that other people overseas don't broadcast anywhere near as well. Well, they do. They may not do it the way that we would do it, but they do, and they do it well. And they get people watching, which we are losing rapidly. We're losing audiences rapidly. It is time, perhaps Gary Lineker has done us all a favour, so it's time to start to look at the system that's used and how these people get appointed without any apparent skill or talent for doing the job. Well, since we got 650 people in Westminster appointed for the same reasons, I guess we can expect it. BBC bosses seek truth to get Lineker back on side, says the Times. The Guardian, BBC bosses in a race to end Lineker standoff and avoid a staff rebellion. The staff, we were getting back to the 1970s, aren't we? When the unions wanted to manage and had no right and no ability to do so. And also what happened in Parliament in the last days of the Theresa May era and the early days of the last three prime ministers that we've got, where the backbenchers were trying to wag the dog, the tail wagging the dog, without any ability to do so. And here we go, and the BBC. If this carries on, the whole country will come to a standstill because nobody will know who the hell's in charge or what it is that we're looking for in people to handle a very sensitive time in our economy and our history. Oh, dearie, dearie, dearie me. Nobody's going to listen to me anyway. Financial Times. Hunt races to gather cash lifeline for tech companies hit by SVB collapse. Well, it's an online bank collapse, apparently. Rather a big one. And it's affecting an awful lot of things online. So the government, once again, has to walk in and try to protect something from a crisis. And once again, I suspect that nobody bothered to find out whether the people in charge of this SVP knew what they were doing, whether they're any good. The FT leads on the UK repercussions of Silicon Valley Bank's collapse. It reports that, that's it, SVB, Silicon Valley Bank. It reports that Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is rushing to provide a cash flow lifeline to some UK-based tech businesses which have been affected. The paper says Mr. Hunt has dismissed a bailout of the UK arm of SVB, but will instead focus on keeping cash flowing to tech groups. Well, there you are. So this person is going to be that happy about, or unhappy for that matter. The Daily Star. Come on, bring a chuckle to Alex. All right, okay. A white Easter, says the Star. Shock and thaw as an Arctic chill is to return. A freeze to odds, it says, cut from 3-1 to 4-5. White Easter is the Daily Star's headline, as the paper reports on a new polar blast, which may lead to snow as late as Easter. Well, there we are. Snow at Easter. Daily Express. Suella orders woke police protect free speech. The Daily Express leads on a report that Home Secretary Suella Braverman has ordered the police to focus on solving crime rather than investigating woke I'm offended complaints under a new code. Well, thank God for that. At least somebody's got the common sense to take these woke people in hand. These people who are ruining the English language. And something which I cannot forgive them for. But then they're just so silly. They don't bother to look at history. They don't bother to put it into context. They just decide that this went against their particular viewpoint. and then make the rest of us try to come into line. And if we don't, then they actually go marching and gluing their trousers to a bridge or whatever. Absolute nonsense, absolute rubbish. Wow, wow, wow. Is there anything locally that we should be paying attention to? Well, we can take a look, can't we? Let's see. Ooh. Well, nothing that's come charging through by the look of things. No, indeed. Very sparse this morning. No. I think we can leave well enough alone until later in the day. Well. There we are. That's where we stand, and it's now 8:57. Time for us to take our half-hour break and prepare ourselves for the next band of programs that we will show this morning, and possibly to find out if Suzanne Mouchot has returned from Dubai and what she got up to over there. And because the social media bits is she's been hobnobbing with people like Hillary Clinton and other well-known ladies who are discussing how they're going to take over us men even more. Oh dear. I do. I get myself into just dreadful trouble. Dreadful trouble. Never mind. So that's the way it stands, and that's the way it's going to be, I guess. So forgive me if I just have a little and make sure that we don't actually gum up the works, and well, I can see me, so I'm just checking on our monitor, which allows me to see whether, in fact, our signal is getting out, and it seems to be this morning, and not badly so. We have good mornings and we have bad mornings. It seems as if things have a headache or not a headache, as the case may be. Anyway, it is now 8:59. Dear. So that's a run through the papers and the main stories of the day, mostly dominated by this gentleman, and why I have no idea. It shows that everybody can be swayed by a celebrity. Hancock, you know, the number of people who have been successful in politics that have come from celebrity, you can count on the fingers of one hand. And yet, we all pay attention because if a film star says boo, we figure that they must know what they're talking about. When in fact, they're mostly incapable of having goodly Sean Ilias is on. Dear Sean, he's a lovely man. I've never actually met him. We tried very hard pre-lockdown, and then lockdown got in the way. But Sean actually gets around, and he meets the most important people, and has photographs taken, and I don't blame him. But he actually says, I totally agree. So we've got something. Well done, Sean. Perhaps I'm not full of hot air after all. So good to have you with us. Thank you very much. And we'll look forward to seeing you later in the day, as indeed what we're going to do is to say toodle pip. Toodle pip at, it's 9:01. We've gone 1 minute over. Naughty boy. Never mind. We will now go, oh,